It's I look at certain things and point of pickup defensively, pressure on the ball, cutting, ball movement, and I just thought they lacked tenacity, aggressive defense. They were one of the worst teams in the league, and that for the fans, for everybody, it's one thing not to win, but when everyone thinks you're talented, which they were, and they're not playing hard, that's a really bad dynamic.
Yeah.
So to me, it's time for change. And, the winning's in the picking. And in that aspect, do you want to be a king? Are you going to play hard? Do you want to get better? Those things are controllables and things that start the base of this. And right now, that we have an open book because there's not many guys contracted. We have 2-3 players contracted. So I have an opportunity which the last coast didn't. I can put together and select my group.
One less than previously because you've locked in Sean Bruce for 2 years. What did you see in the 33-year-old that made you want to make him a part of the club or remain a part of the club?
Well, the point that playing against the Kings, and I got the opportunity to do that, those things that I talked about, leadership, I think he does a great job when he's on the floor of running the team, bringing a little bite to the team. Yeah. And from what everyone says, he is the leader culturally, right. At practice, on the day-to-day, there's a tremendous – and the first thing I did when I came in is ask the other coaches, the assistant coaches, the trainers, the people around it, what about this guy, what about this guy? And everybody what I felt about Bruce is what everybody says about him. Would you have him back? Yes, he's a must. And, again, I was very excited and supportive about that signing because it says what I'm talking about is real.
Jalen Adams, Denzel Valentine, Jonah Bolden, DJ Hogue. Where were we at with those guys? I think, was Hogue contracted? He had a multi-year contract, didn't he?
No, a team option. Oh. And assessing all of that.
Okay.
Assessing all of that. And, again, like I said, there's some guys that I'm after, and I'm going to and then see where we are after that. And I'm also, as I said, right now, just come back from the Philippines, and now am talking to staff, talking to who did you see, what did you like, what would you do? I mean, I've been doing a lot of that, so. There's no decisions on the names that you mentioned yet, but no commitment yet from our way to sign yet.
Did you happen to see a guy over there in the Philippines by the name of Xavier Cooks? I think he's a former league MVP. I think he's a former finals MVP. And every second kid at Kudos Bank Arena had Cooks and number 10 on their jersey back in the day.
Well, he's that's a no-brainer. I mean, I left Wollongong to be a part of that Euro League of Asia, which was the finals of that. So I was invited by the EASL to come, and I did clinics there, but it also was very convenient that Xavier was playing there.
Yep.
And, there's no doubt that's somebody that we'd have back and have an open book right now, and he's my first contact.
Yeah, wow. All right, what about the NBL? You made mention it's on the up and up, and I don't know whether it's Larry Kesselman or it's all the franchise owners or it's a combination of all of those things, the game itself, its competitors. Why do you think basketball is having, I don't know whether it's a resurgence, but almost like all-time highs when it comes to interest and participation?
Well, I mean, as far as the NBA, the building blocks and the building of being in Melbourne, the building of stadiums, the extension of stadiums, the interest of kids, the center of excellence, all the things around it have grown. And I always think, when I came to Australia and we got it going, and I was in Victoria, I thought the football did a tremendous job of, this is Australia's sport. Australian rules football played nowhere. They did it better than anybody. And I'd always sit there and go, yeah, it is. But we're a world sport.
Yeah.
And back then, social media, computers, the iPhone. There was none of that. Where now all these people, the NBA's in your living room.
Yeah.
You can watch games in China. You can watch games in Philippines. We've got 400 Australians playing in America in the college system.
400?
We've got 400. We've got 10 NBA players playing, 10 guys playing in the NBA. So all of these, you couldn't do that before.
Yeah.
So now the football and all these others can say whatever they want. I mean, you can't stop this. You can't control this. It's there. And then our NBL needed, I left because I had so many merges. Won the championship with the Dragons. We no longer exist. Won 3 championships with the Kings. What happened with the Kings? They folded. So, I mean, I was done with it. And Larry Kesselman, they didn't have that piece. And that was I thought that was the piece that was missing. And what he's done, I mean, there's a range of things now that the owners in the franchises, the media around it, all these things. But Larry's been the difference maker, I think. Coming in, taking it, putting his money where his mouth is, and building it. And he's done a tremendous job with the game. And now, I'm in China, I'm in Japan, people are talking about the NBL. They're watching the NBL. And then also the success of the Boomers and what went on in the national team to be the first. I know the World Cup was a bit of a disappointment, but the Olympics in getting a medal, it's just we talk about the first time for Australia, but it wasn't the first time for Australia. It was the first time for our whole region. Yeah. So I'm dealing with Jordan, Lebanon, Iran, Philippines, Chinese Taipei, Korea, Japan. Never a medal in basketball. And now we've got a country with 25 million people in it in Japan. What are you doing over there?
Yeah.
And all these kids coming through and developing, and now all these guys playing in the NBA. So there's a real buzz about Australian basketball, and there's a buzz about the NBL.
Melbourne United defeated the Illawarra Hawks, your old side. That was almost a dream run that they were going on. But United have been superb all year. And then bit of an upset over there in Perth. The Wildcats beaten by Tasmania. The Jack Jumpers, they're an incredible franchise. And I don't know, people talk about, the NBL would have loved Melbourne United v Perth, right? 2 big franchises. But the expansion story and the fact that Tasmania in their 3rd year are in their 2nd grand final series up against Melbourne United. When you look at that, what do you see? Who do you think's going to win?
I said this, they laughed at me about the Hawks, and I said at the very start of the season, they're a top 4 team. They could win the championship. They're capable of winning the championship. Yep. They have 2 great Australians. They got very talented imports, and they've got great depth. I look at Tasmania Jack Jumpers and other. It's not just me, but as we go into this playoff series, they hadn't lost a game by more than 9 points.
Right.
They've always punched above their weight. But now you not only got great coaching, you not only got a team that's been smacked in the mouth a couple times and haven't got over the hump. So they've got that experience, they've got that hunger. But now they've got the talent. So they've added. They've got great guard play. They've got a great rim protector in Magne, who hasn't been healthy his whole time.
Yeah.
And now they've got 2 great Australian players and great depth. And the development on some of the young guys that he's brought in there now over 3 or 4 years. So I look at this series, and there'd be no surprise. Jack Jumpers are very capable of winning this series, and I picked them over Perth. I just think I just think they're a better basketball team.
Okay.
And Perth's got a new coach. They're brought some new players in. They're going through change. I think Tasmania is ripe for a championship. I know Melbourne is favorite, but this is going to be a great series, and don't count Tassie out.
We were talking about Scott Roth a little bit earlier, Dean Vickerman, Steve Kerr in the NBA, maybe outside of basketball. Are there other coaches that you look to and like what they do, follow what they do? Is there anyone that's had an influence on you, Brian?
I was told when I first came to Australia, I was thirsty as a young coach for knowledge. How do I get better? And basketball was pretty insular, and it was strange. It was difficult. So I remember, I'd go over to America and I'd do courses and talk to coaches, and I do have mentors over there. But one of them said to me, they've got to have something they're great at. in Australia in sport. Go around and find the best. And I came back and I said, I'm going to go to Australian rules football.
Right.
And it was, at that time, it was Robert Walls, it was David Parkin, Tony Shaw, and all of these coaches, and a lot of them I didn't realize had played state basketball when they were young. They were interested in the basketball side. But I feel like I got going in the basketball through the football. And things like the culture, empowerment, leadership teams, what Paul Roos was doing with the Sydney Swans, the Bloods.
Yes.
That thing I brought to the Boomers, I brought to my teams, innovating with strength and conditioning. Well, I thought we were way behind the football, and I brought that to the basketball. So I learned a lot from football, and now you look at football and Australian rules, and we're in, the rugby. Now I come to this. This is a whole different. This is collision, where these sports are contact, and football's become more like basketball, even in the terminology. The game's played, and it's side to side, and the handball, and the kick, and the ball, handling the ball, defensive transition back. There's a lot of parallels between that. So. I follow the Australian rules very closely, and those coaches have been, Nathan Buckley, have been influenced and inspirational. Really have helped me in my career.
Questions coming in for Brian Goorjian, newly named coach of the Sydney Kings again. Just was it the 3 championships you had at Sydney previously?
Three.
Just 3, okay. 3 in a trot, I think it was. This is from Glenn. For Brian, does he see... We have to get to the Boomers questions. Paddy Mills and Josh Giddey as the starting guards in Paris. Is Delhi a chance for Paris, given his solid NBL finals campaign?
I think it's a Paddy Mills and Giddey are. I mean, they're both going to be major pieces to this. Yeah. Do they start? It's way. I mean, the camp is going to be enjoyable, but they're 2 major pieces to this. And the thing I always find about Delhi, I think he's so much better when he plays in the NBL and he plays, as opposed to being in the NBA and sits on the bench for a whole season and is like a culture guy for the team.
Yep.
And how he's playing right now is he's being taken very seriously as potential for the Boomer. He'll be in the camp. And that guard spot, in the question the gentleman's asking here, is the most difficult decision. Because all 5 of those guys in that spot are NBA players. And we've got, the thing that people don't understand, a lot of them, about the Boomers is it works in cycles. So some of these young guys, if they're going to have a bench player, you don't want a 35-year-old bench player. We've got Dyson Daniels sitting there, who's an NBA player, and if you bring Delhi in, one of those guys is going to have one of those young guys is going to have to be moved out. So it's a tough decision, but Delhi's putting pressure on making that decision.
Squad of 15 be narrowed down to 12 for the Olympics. Is that how it works?
It'll the way that the NBL has gone this. McVeigh, it has come out of nowhere with the Tasmanian Devils and what's going on there. Scott Roth has done such a great job with development and style of play, how we want to play as Boomers. He defensively and offensively, he's all about it. So a guy like McVeigh, a guy like Magnay are become really interesting in this, how they've flourished over the last 18 months under his guidance. So they're 2 guys I'm taking seriously.
One of the guys we've spoken a lot about in Australian sport over the last 24 months is Ben Simmons. I'm going to get your thoughts on Ben Simmons because I think you met with him over in the US. Be very interesting. If you want to ask a question to Brian Goorjian, let us know. 0457 736 736. We'll take a call as well, 1300 01 1170. All right, we've got to get ourselves to a break. After that, we're back with more from Brian, including his thoughts on Ben Simmons. Stick around. All righty, welcome back. Special guest Brian Goorjian, newly named coach of the city. I'll tell you what, Paul Smith, who's a friend of the program, Uncle Paul, I call him. He would have been very excited with your signing, I'd imagine, Brian. Is that right?
He was, and he's a character.
Yes,
I've competing against him.
Yeah.
It's like you're competing against the team and Paul Smith. So I felt like he was happy, but so was I. It's nice to have him on my team.
And Andrew Bogut and Luke Longley, they will still be involved?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's, as a competitor and you're in the league and you're always looking for an edge, those two, I've been involved in the game a long time. Nobody has those pieces around it.
Right.
Not in the ownership,
Yeah.
Their ability, selection of players, style of play, been around the block. Players can sit with him, talk with him. They can help him skill-wise. They can help him, mentally on how to approach the game, how to be professional. You got that around you. And then another one that's understated is Chris Pongrass.
Right.
Working with
CEO,
him now.
Yep.
Yeah, he's like I usually do the recruiting on my own. I mean, the salary cap and all that's becoming very, very difficult.
Yeah.
I couldn't handle that. And he's all over it.
Yeah.
So he's been tremendous to work with.
Okay. I think one of the great shames of the bronze medal at Tokyo, if there was any negative, was that Ben Simmons wasn't there and he was working on a jump shot. Last I saw him, he was eating strawberries and cream at Wimbledon. That's a separate issue. What's the? I know he's out injured and he's not going to be there at Paris, or so I believe. But when you speak to Ben, is he committed to the game of basketball? Is he committed to Australia?
I really feel that he's committed to Australia, and it was something I mean, what's going on in the NBA or anything? I thought he looked really motivated. This is like a new day, and the Australian team with his. And again, everyone starts thinking, here goes Goorjian again because I've been positive about this the whole way through, and on my background, he played for my brother at Box Hill in high school.
Wow. Okay.
He's been in the family home in the States.
Right.
My father was a big fan. The whole process there. And then when I got the national job, he'd been cut, and now I'm coming in new. And I thought there was some synergy there. So then he had the whole thing with Philadelphia just as we're going to go, and did he pass the ball? Didn't he? He's going to go to New Jersey. So I felt at that time it was a bad time to go into because the international game's different. How they would have played Ben Simmons in that, they would have, every time he touched the ball, they would have fouled him and put him on the foul line.
Right.
They would have made life miserable, and he was vulnerable then. But I think since then, and he's gone to New Jersey, I felt this one coming up, Paris, he was really excited about. When I met him face to face, the first thing I'll tell you is you're in the gene pool, I always say, when you're around that NBA element. You go around. When you see him in person and he stands up and you shake his hand, he is put together.
Right.
And he is big.
Yeah.
It's not 6'6", it's 6'9", 6'10".
Right.
Big shoulders on him, strong forearms. He's a presence. And he looked me in the eye and he shook my hand. He said, I want to be a Boomer. And then, in all honesty, it was all, I'm not playing. He had a back issue.
Yeah.
And he said, if I'm playing, I want to play for the Boomers. And, this whole thing, if you think about since I've been involved with the Boomers to now, he hasn't played in the NBA. If he's not playing in the NBA, he's not going to play on the Boomers.
No.
And nor do we want a guy that isn't in a position to play.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not fair to the other players. So as it sits now, he felt like he started the season, the back got irritated. He was on a mend coming back, get some momentum and come into the Boomers. But he needed to get on the floor. And right now the news has been horrific. The back's blown up and he's out for the rest of the year. And I'd say that puts a lid on my time with Ben in Paris.
Okay. All right. So that's disappointing, but glad to know that he's committed to the Boomers. All right. Fast five here because we've gone a little over time. What was the one thing that Brian would like changed or brought in to improve the NBL? Ask Glenn.
I know why you can't, but I'd love a 48-minute game. I played overseas because I think we've only got 10 teams. We've got so many players now that are capable, and I want more time so I can sub and use my bench more. Right now, in the way you only play 28 games, I think you can easily get away with playing 7 players. and grind those guys and rest them and play the next one. To get these young guys an opportunity to play, they keep throwing it on the coaches. We need a longer game.
Okay.
We need a 48-minute game.
Best player you've coached us, Adam?
The best basketball player I've coached?
That's correct.
Probably Andrew Bogut.
Okay.
Talent-wise, and probably Athens is his first one. When he was young, before he had that injury hanging on the rim.
Yeah.
Again, every aspect of the game. He's just athletic. Back then, he could shoot the ball, make his free throws, unbelievably skilled. And the other thing about Bogut, he had an edge to him, and you can't teach that.
Yeah.
We had a couple times where, I went at him hard, and he came back. And I remember, I won't get into the incident, but I came back, and the assistant goes, "That was something." And I said, "You know what? That kid's going to be great." Because I thought a guy 18-year-old, where he went with me,
right?
This kid's got an edge and a toughness and a competitive spirit. And that side is so very important.
Edge, toughness, competitive spirit. You've just described the squad that you're assembling for the Sydney Kings for next season. Jimmy, no question for Mr. Goorjian, just the utmost respect for his achievements and his attitude towards Aussie basketball. Cheers, Josh the Bricky. Good on you, Josh the Bricky. Thank you, sir, for coming in. Great to have you in. I know we'll have you again later, but on behalf of everyone, all the very best for the Boomers, for Paris, and, of course, for the Sydney Kings beyond that.
Excited to be back in Sydney. Thank you, bro.
Brian Goorjian was our special guest. Let's get to the news. We're running late.